One thing to start with, and I guess I have control over this. Let's see what that does. I want to welcome Robert. Now, he's not here this morning. Robert is our new bookkeeper. So, yay, we have a new bookkeeper. Feel free to stop by, get to know him. He came to us through just the job search meeting, so he was not part of CLC family prior. So Robert just seems wonderful. I've really enjoyed the time that I've gotten to spend with him. He seems like a super nice guy. And then all those people who understand finances and are working with him keep giving me thumbs up. So Mike, does that still hold here today? Saying thumbs up about Robert, that he seems like he knows what he's doing, he's getting on board and getting things going. So it is really, really good to have him as part of the team. So again, when you're in the church office during the week, stop in and say hi to him. We enjoy meeting people. Anything else before we get started? All right, then getting rolling. One of the things that I've done is I've been able to get out and meet with the vast majority of you. Not necessarily everybody, but a huge number of you. And through that process, there were two things that I heard over and over and over from people in homes, and just in terms of their church and what they would like to see. The first one of those concerned our littlest ones, and boy, this morning we had a congregation full of the little ones at 9:30. That was awesome. It was just great to just have that buzz of energy from all of them. But one of the realities in our church today is that we really don't have, beyond a Sunday school, much programming, and the preschool as well, but much programming for kids of that age. Until they get to middle school age and age into Noel's programming area there, we just really don't have much to do with and for those little ones, other than worship and our Sunday school, which doesn't meet every Sunday, but a bunch of Sundays that way. And so one of the things I heard on a recurring basis was, could we do that? And I heard that in many different ways. Some was from parents of little ones, but also grandparents of little ones. And there were some that also expressed a little bit of frustration with that, because in some cases, kids who grew up here at CLC have chosen to take their children somewhere else that has more for those kids to do. And so asking, could we do something with and for the littlest ones? So is everybody with me on that first half there? All right, second half of it then was about adults. And I used a very churchy word up there, fellowship for adults. It's more than that, and some people might say, fellowship, what the heck is that, you know? I've heard the Fellowship of the Ring and not much else beyond that, using that word on a weekly basis. So what I mean by that is opportunities for adults to do things together, where that's learning, serving, worshiping, all of those various things. So what I heard over and over was, Pastor Sean, I feel almost like we're one congregation, but we're almost two. Because there's those that come at 8, those that come at 9:30, and then we have the Lahu congregation that comes at 11. And beyond that, we just really don't mix at all. I don't ever see the people that are from one of the other services. And so that's something we want to try and address there. And then people just in general asking for more fun things to do, whatever that might be. And so service projects of various types. Can we help out doing X, Y, or Z? And what about learning together? Also heard a little bit about small groups. Some are working great. And some of you are members of small groups that have been going for a long time. And you have incredible closeness with those people, and that is wonderful. That is good. Keep doing that. That's great. But there are others of you that have said, I like it when we get together and do some of those. I wish we did that more often, or I wish there were more opportunities to become engaged that way. And so those were the two overwhelming things that I heard. Ability for adults to get together for a variety of reasons and to do a variety of things, and then also things for our littlest one. Everybody with me on those two? So what we are going to start doing, and I'm not sure I have an exact start date, more on that later, but we're going to start having what right now I am calling Wednesday night church night. It needs a new name. That is a horrible name. If you leave me in charge of naming things, you are going to get bad names. You don't want me doing that. You notice I don't put out weekly sermon titles. I am not good at naming things. So I went down the hall, I went into Noel's office. Lauren wasn't around this week. She was checking out her new digs in San Diego. I said to Noel, help me name this thing. We need something better than church night. And Noel told me, you're in the wrong office, man. I'm not good at naming things either. So maybe we have a contest, I don't know, but we need to name it something else. Need to come up with some ideas there as we go. The idea is on Wednesday nights we'll get together, and I don't know the exact number, but 30 to 40 times, 35 to 40 times a year. With 52 weeks, we're probably going to take 8 weeks over the summer off. So that right there knocks you down to 44. And then I can count some other weeks that we probably won't do it. Maybe not Thanksgiving Eve, maybe not the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, maybe not Holy Week. You know, there'll be some other weeks that we take off where it's obvious, you know, we don't do it that week. But we get together the rest of the Wednesday nights. Right now, my time idea is 5:30 to 7:30. 5 o'clock feels too early to get people off work and in. 8 o'clock feels too late to keep littles up. So that's why I'm saying 5:30 to 7:30. Again, as with all the ideas I present here today, these are things that can morph over time as we figure out what works best and what doesn't. But right now, looking at 5:30 to 7:30. And I want to be absolutely clear about Wednesday night, church night, name something else in the future, not church night. It is for everybody. I don't care how young or old you are, it is for everybody. Now, the idea behind it is we do something kind of like what we're doing right now. For half an hour, everybody gets to eat a meal together. And it needs to be meals that are fairly simple. The idea being something that kids would eat. I'm thinking about taco bars, spaghetti and meatballs. You know, there's all kinds of possibilities we can do. And hopefully the meals then don't destroy the diets of those of us that are a little older and have doctors telling us what to eat. So that we get together, we have a meal, and that meal is then put on by volunteers from this church who say, I'm going to take a night and put on the meal. That's what I'm going to do. And if you do that, that's the only thing you have to do that night. You're not also teaching, you're not also doing something else. The idea is to do that. And the fun thing of this is, even if we only had 15 to 20 people who sign up and say, hey, I'll put on a meal, if those people just do it twice a year, we're covered for a full year, just with that many. I don't know how many will sign up to do it, but it's one of those things that can actually be kind of fun, cooking for an army, and doing that one night. That can be good. So the first half hour, that's what we do, is get together and have that. Then, for the rest of the evening, and Jack, go ahead and hit my next one here. For the rest of the evening, we break by age groups, roughly. We're going to have a youth track that kind of go their direction, and then we'll have things for adults to do. So for the next hour and a half, we're sort of separated that way. Now, I want to be absolutely clear with the parents here as well. And maybe this catches some grandparents too. I don't know, those of you who are caring for children on a regular basis. There is absolutely no shame whatsoever in simply dropping your kids off, having them come in, and knowing they're going to be in a place where they are safe and cared for the next 2 hours, and then the two of you heading off and having date night. No shame in that whatsoever. It can be really valuable to actually have one evening where you can maybe go someplace, get a nice bite to eat in a quiet atmosphere without little kids running around rampaging and all the things that you normally have. So, I want to be just clear, everybody with me on that for those who just want to drop kids off, that is okay. Go have one night together. So again, if you're all with me on this, we have a youth track and an adult track. And we're going to break off and talk about the youth. For the older youth, they're going to probably be together for an hour and a half with Noel and others doing their thing, whatever they do. When we're talking about the younger kids, the ones for whom we haven't had things going, I want you to think in terms of half-hour modules. So in any one gathering night that we have, we will have 3 half-hour units there where we can do things with the kids. Now, I've put some samples up there, my goodness, in one of our just staff room kind of throwing ideas out. I think we came up with 9 different things we could do. You see, I think 5 of them up there. Indoor games, outdoor games, Bible study learning opportunities to actually do that. Music, arts and crafts. The idea being that, and I'm going to pick on Phil because he's sitting right here in the front row. If Phil is really into arts and crafts and teaching that, he doesn't have to do it every single Wednesday night because we have more modules than we have, spaces in any one evening. So one Wednesday he shows up and he does arts and crafts, and his first unit might be for the littlest of the littles, and then kind of the medium littles, and then finally he's got the upper elementary kids on his third go around, or in whatever order they come through. But he then is able to do arts and crafts that evening as the others then come through to his space, and he does it in an age-appropriate way for each one coming through, and then he gets a few weeks off before he's up again to do arts and crafts, or until someone else says, and maybe that's Jim's thing, and Jim says, Phil, I'm taking your next arts and crafts, and I'm doing it the next time, you're up then the time after that again. Everybody understand how those modules work? Already, for instance, our praise team, I know, they were gathered together at a rehearsal Wednesday or so ago, and they were already brainstorming with Paul, how can we do things on a Wednesday night to include more kids in what we do on Sunday mornings? And that was just a really neat conversation to know that they were having that way. Everybody understand the youth track that way? All right, then let's go on to the adult track. You think it'll work for me? Yay, it worked. So the adult track. Again, we talked about this. Learning opportunities that we can do and so forth. Also, Wednesday night can also be a time when small groups say, hey, that's when we're going to meet. We're going to be part of this big dinner. Then we're going to go meet and do our thing. Blessings to you. Enjoy it. Have that time together, and that is perfectly good. The other thing is service opportunities. I don't know exactly what those are yet. There's going to be those of you in the congregation who are going to say, hey, Pastor Sean, I'm aware of this thing. Can we do this? But imagine being here on a Wednesday night, and maybe over on this side, there being thousands of backpacks and stacks of materials to go in those backpacks for kids who are starting school. And all of us then take an evening to assemble those, get those put together, and then we get them delivered to where they need to be so that kids can have those. That can be something we do here. Imagine the Navigation Center as it looks to have its opening later in August. Maybe there's something on one Wednesday night that they need a whole bunch of volunteers to do something to get the place up and fully optimized and running. We all hop in cars, carpool up there, do that thing, bang it out, come back here, get out of our carpools, get in our own cars, and go home. Amazing things that we can do on a service basis as we go through. One other thing, and I know that 12-step groups often like to keep anonymity and so forth, but also wouldn't it be cool if there are any groups meeting here on Wednesday night, we invite them to be at the dinner as well, for any who want to come. Wouldn't it be great to be known as a place where everybody is welcome to break bread together? And that can be part of what this Wednesday night is about too. So let's jump on, let's see, I guess I'm in charge of it, so I'll jump us to the next one. Wow, look at that slidey animation that's coming across. To kind of whet your appetite for some of the learning opportunities that are coming. Most of you know Pastor Brian had a 2-part new member class, and then he had a 4-part leadership class. Just real quick, a hand in the air or a bigger nodded head if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's a whole bunch of you there. So that ended up being 6 classes long. I've kind of taken things, redone them a little bit, and taken a lot of the same material, but broke it down into 5 pieces. One is just the Christ Lutheran basics. Some of it is Lutheran basics, some of it is basics to the congregation here, and that is what will function as our new member class. And now, wait for this. Even if you have been a member of this church for longer than I've been alive, I'm going to ask you to retake that one again. I want to be something that all of us can do together and have some fun actually doing that one together. So even though it's the most basic of the basic, you never know, you might still learn something and have fun with it. If nothing else, you can have fun making fun of the pastor that's leading it while you're sitting at a table with some of your new friends you just met on Wednesday night. The second class is about devotional life. And there's all kinds of things in that. So how did the Bible get formed? What is the Bible about? How do I go about reading it? What translation should I use? I'm not going to limit you to just one. I've got probably about half a dozen that I think are fairly decent. And I can help recommend some of those, because I don't know if any of you have ever done this. Have you ever gone to a Bible store and then just stood there and been overwhelmed by the sheer volume of number of choices? It can be exactly that. So I can help you with some guidance on that, just where to start, how to get that going. But then talk about other devotional things that we can do too, whether it's things we read or watch at home, whether it's getting involved in small groups with others. But this is part of the, this is sort of the one class then that launches our small groups and gets those going and does all of that. The third one is just worship basics. And again, just a quick commercial, it will probably need to be taught in the sanctuary, because we're going to talk about everything about the building. Why is it shaped the way it is? Why does it look the way it does? Why do we burn candles in a room with perfectly good electrical illumination? Why do we have different colored things in there? Why do we talk about the seasons of the church year? Why did we used to kneel for communion and now we have this drive-through communion? Why do we have different ways that we do things, and what's the purpose and meaning behind it? So just sort of all the basics about worship and so forth. So again, I invite you to be part of that. We'll talk about music, we'll talk about all kinds of fun things like that. Spirituality and service. How many of you, either with Patty Dudley, Lauren Chambers, or any of the other people who have been part of it, have ever done a spiritual gifts assessment in this place? There's a whole bunch of you that have. Okay, cool. That's the class we're going to talk about, doing that and talking about how has God gifted each and every one of us, and then how do we engage in service. Do any of you remember, I'm going to use a term that maybe you didn't use because I don't know what was used, but do you remember ministry fairs in this place where all the various ministry teams and stuff? Okay, there's a bunch of you saying yes. And I'm visualizing like a whole bunch of things set up saying this is what we do, how we do it, and how you can be a part of it. Everybody got that? The idea is, as part of this class, we would actually do that too, so that people can learn again what are things that are going on. I want you to know that I've been pastor of this church for 4.5 months, almost 5 now. Wait a minute, tomorrow's 5. Wow, time flies. 5 months tomorrow. I'm going to say I'm embarrassed about this, but here it goes. I just learned that I believe there's one Thursday night a month that people from this congregation get together and put on a meal for homeless folks. And I learned about that this week. And I'm the pastor of this church. I can't imagine how many things are going on that just, anybody just coming in on Sundays doesn't know about. And we have so many incredible ministries going on. I'm constantly surprised by things and just blown away by the wonderful things that are happening. And then this week I even learned that. So, and my guess is there's probably a whole bunch more ministries out there yet that I still don't know about and haven't learned and haven't encountered yet. It's part of the joy and the fun, but it's also what this fourth one tries to get at is, here are ways that maybe you never even thought of that you can be a part of things and be able to, again, have more fellowship with other adults doing really amazing and wonderful things that make a difference in people's lives. And then the last one up there is about leadership. And again, for those who wish to serve on various boards and things like that, we do all sorts of things, talking about how people are gifted differently, how they work together differently, all those kinds of things, and then be able to work together to discern God's will and to help us go forward. Well, the next thing, I'm going to try one more time here and see if this works. Is it delayed? Yay, there it goes. Nice little fade out this time. We're going to be a church that travels. And this one time you're going to hear me apologize for this. Because some of these trips are going to be beyond the financial ability of some of the people of our congregation to do. And I apologize for that. That's just one of the realities that is there. But also demographically, I know that we have a big portion of our congregation are people who are of a stage of life and have the abilities and the resources to be able to travel. And I want us to be able to do that together. And to be able to do really wonderful and amazing trips. I've listed some of them up there. Some of them are fairly obvious. Some of you have already done together as part of this congregation before. I know Pastor Brian has led a few trips in the past. But that's something that we want to be able to do. And I threw that last one up there because it's one I've done with people before. And it can be a pretty amazing trip. But they don't all have to be overseas. There are some things that we can do right here in our own country that can have deep meaning and purpose and value, and that part of that also being just the group doing it together. Everybody with me on this part? Okay, let's carry on. I'm going to click again here. Now, those are some of the things in terms of where we're going, and now we start talking a little bit about how we get there and what we do. One of the things that we're looking to do, and again, this is not just me, this is also the board, and then also my hearing from all of you as well, is we're looking to add 2 new staff to our church. One of them is a director of children's ministry. I don't know if there's anything more obvious that I could say. Noel put it very succinctly to me at one time. It's kind of hard to have a children's ministry if you don't have somebody directing it. So we are being serious about having excellence in children's ministry. It means we want to have a director of that. We're looking to start at least just a part-time. You see that 25 to 30 hours a week. In the very near future, your board right now is fine-tuning the job description itself. I've seen some emails going back and forth saying, hey, we should add this, we should tweak that, we should do these things. So your board is currently hard at work. You're going to see that job description being out there here pretty soon. And then the other is a staff support person. I won't go into all the inner workings of the office, and trust me, everybody that's there is busting their butt doing incredibly good and amazing ministry and work. But we're going to add one person just to help with all of the details that we have coming up, especially this Wednesday night thing and other things coming, just to make sure that we're optimized and doing the best that we can. The next big thing that you're going to hear me talk about today is dedicated youth space. Right now we have the house out front. And right now, I believe our deeper group is meeting there as we speak. The house has been an enormous and wonderful blessing for many, many years. But it has 2 very significant drawbacks. One of them is size. One of the things I've been able to look, because again, we count all the time, looking at the numbers that Noel has of people getting together, one of the things that I've noticed is that we keep hitting this ceiling of how many kids are participating. And you know what I think that ceiling is? It's the size of the space. Because over there in the youth house, the way that it's laid out and so forth, you can't get much beyond 12. If you really pack it, 15, before you've got kids that are in a completely different room from each other. And that's just simply not big enough for space. The other thing is that that building is not in what you would call tip-top shape. So if any of you question that, I invite you just wander over there. You can wander over there while Noel's there and teach and deeper. That'll be okay. But once you get in there, take in a nice deep breath of the air. Wait a minute, I have some of my property people doing this thing to me. So maybe don't go over there and breathe in really deeply. Maybe that's not good for you. But it's not in the greatest shape. And we're going to talk about how we replace that in a moment. But it's come to nearing the end of its useful lifespan and ability to go forward. So the tool to address all these things and what we're going to do, and some of you have heard that this is coming already, is we are going to look this fall at beginning a capital funds campaign to address these very things. The first thing about the capital funds campaign, what it will do is it will ask that all of us to donate, but then in a very intentional way, we're going to take 10% off the top of that and be a blessing somewhere else and support ministries that we really care about who are doing ministry that isn't just right here. My understanding is that every single capital funds campaign that's been done in the history of Christ Lutheran Church has done this already. That this is just part of our DNA and what we do. And then, coincidentally enough, I come here as your new pastor, and every capital funds campaign I've ever been a part of in previous places has done this, taken 10% off the top and done that. So it's who we are, it's what we do, more information on that coming. Then the two big things. Number one, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but we are in debt and servicing that debt, and let's eliminate that debt. I will have more information about that for you just a couple slides from now, but let's get out of debt and quit having to service that. And then the next thing then is that new youth space that we talked about there and how then we're going to do that. So in doing that, let's start first talking about the debt that we are in. We basically owe two. One is to ourselves, and one is to what is called the Mission Investment Fund, the ELCA. The Mission Investment Fund initially loaned us a whole bunch of money to basically renovate the room that we're in and add the entire office piece on that. Am I saying that right for the ones who are here? I'm seeing a bunch of people nodding, so yes, there we are. As of the end of April, and I'll tell you why I'm using that number in just a moment. As of the end of April, you can see how much we still owe. $792,000, I have it written down here somewhere, $536.56. That's the number that we still owe on this as of the end of April's statement. So as we went to make our May payment, that's what was still owed in principal. Now let me assure you, the amount that we borrowed, we've already more than paid that back over the years because of all the interest and everything else that has gone into it. But this is what we still owe in order to end this debt. Then, a number of years ago, I'm going to say about 5 or 6, we bought solar panels and placed them on the building over there. Am I right on my timing? Looking for people nodding. I'm seeing a bunch of people nod yes. So, right around there. And this is the principle of what is still left. We borrowed it from our endowment fund, and we need to repay that into the endowment fund. And so that is what we still owe there. So what happens then, you might ask, if we pay this debt off early? The first thing is, if we just pay it out over time, we're going to end up paying, instead of the $800,000 that we owe, right about $1.5 million. I would rather save $700,000. I would rather not see $700,000 just, and again, I don't mean to bring up the purple people, but it doesn't need to go to some bankers somewhere. I would rather see that ministry do ministry, that money do ministry, than just get paid to that. And so by paying it off early, the congregation, in essence, saves $700,000. And let's be about that. That is huge. To talk about that same money another way. Right now in this year's budget, we have $132,000 a year that goes to service debt. $132,000 a year, that's what we pay. When we end this, with the donations that you're already giving, without giving a single penny more, we will have $132,000 a year to do ministry instead of simply to service debt. Is everybody with me and understand those numbers? All right, then we talk about a new youth space, and we go on with that. Now, in the new youth space, I first started thinking in one way. And my way of thinking was this: let's take the existing house we have and let's just knock out the walls. If the problem is so simple that it's just kids can't fit in there and still be in the same room, let's make one big room. That struck me as being a common sense approach to things. I was then disabused of that notion. The reason is something called load-bearing walls. And so then I talked about, well, let's have pillars. At least they can see around the pillars, and we can do all of that. Well, then they introduced me to two new words that maybe you've heard before. Those new words being lead paint and asbestos. Then they introduced me to other things. Once you pull the permits to do that, there are other things that must be done. The building then has to be completely 100% ADA compatible, which again, I'm not opposed to that. That's a great thing. We should do that everywhere with everything. But there's a price tag that comes with that. And then they let me know about, and it's a public space. It needs to have a full fire prevention system, the sprinkler system installed, and then people started attaching costs to each of those things. And then, and I don't mean to overly concern everybody, but with the sturdiness of the foundation, the sturdiness of what holds up the roof, which we need a new roof too on that thing. You can just look at it and see that. We're going to spend all this money, and it is hundreds of thousands of dollars, redoing this space, and then we give it about a 10-year lifespan. And that seemed like a really bad idea all of a sudden. But I'm not short on ideas, so I immediately sprung into action and thought about a couple other things. First thing was, this building over here was originally designed to be 2 stories. How many of you are aware of that? A whole bunch of you. And when they built that building, they actually built it so that the second deck, if you will, was in place so that it'd be pretty easy to put a second story on it. And I thought, that's awesome. Let's do that. And then I was introduced to the cost of elevators, which that building would need. And there's not one room to put one inside, so you have to kind of put it outside, sort of attached to it. And then I found out that an elevator costs more than any home I've ever lived in, just to get started. And then from there, guess how many things we're going to find when we try and go and put a second story on an existing building. And on and on and on. Okay, so we're not going to do that. So then I brought my Midwestern mentality to the table, and I said, do all of you know what I mean by a pole barn? Let's just have a big empty structure. Those don't cost very much. We got the back 40 out there. Let's just slap down an empty structure on the back 40. That can't cost very much. And you know what? The building itself wasn't horrifyingly priced. It was a lot. I had to sit down for a while, get my breath, but it was survivable. But then I was informed, Beshar, we don't have any water, any power, any sewer service, anything coming in on the back 40 back there. So we've got to connect all that. And then, because it's detached from everything else, there's an expectation, and I recognize it's not unreasonable, but you have to have then a 40 or 50 parking lot next to it. By the time you added all that up, it quickly reached, do you understand the expression stratosphere? Can we just go with that word? So then the new idea. Knock down what we got going on. Now that one I got some consistent pricing on. Nearly everybody said somewhere between 15 and 25. Can any of you guess why the variable in there? I heard it, asbestos. How much of it is there? And the floating 10,000 is a scale directly related to how much asbestos needs to be remediated, getting it out of there. And every company we talk to is almost identical on this number. And so that feels like a number I can trust. Got it. There's one other possibility, though. I gotta tell you, I'm holding out hope. Do not leave from here saying that your pastor is an arsonist. That may get me in trouble later. But did you know we have a member of this congregation who actually teaches at COS and teaches future firefighters firefighting? And did you know we have a very recently retired police captain, fire captain, I'm sorry. Did you know that we have people who do this for a living in this congregation, even Carol's own son, Isaiah, and all these people who tell me, and I've actually gotten to see this before, where the fire departments need to practice. Now here's the downside. We're going to get to the upside, and it's big.
That's Sean. That could be done on a Wednesday.
That could be done on a Wednesday. There we go. New activity. The downside is, and you can imagine this, I have moved to the great state of California, where, and I'm not mean to insult these things at all, but the amount of paperwork to be gone through before you can set fire to something is extensive. Every single environmental agency that you've heard of and another 100 that you haven't heard of yet have to sign off and say that that doesn't pose a problem to Kim and other people who happen to live right next door to what I'm trying to burn down. All those kinds of things have to go into it. And it's going to be a 1.5 year, 2 year long process just to get it to go through all of those hoops. And so Leslie talked to me about that this is going to take a little bit of time here, Pastor. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. And let's also be clear, we may clear 798 steps, and the 799th trips us up and says it's not happening now. But here comes the upside. If it happens, as part of our capital funds campaign, I will be selling tickets to my balcony off my office with long sticks and marshmallows. And we will be there. That's an upside that I am looking forward to. I was later told I should not have done this. But in my very first email where I started inquiring, hey, is this thing even possible? Can we do something like this? Can this go? I actually asked, and can I light the fire? Once the building is gone, by whatever means we use to eliminate the building, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably the boring way with the 15 to 25,000 trying to come in and take it out. It's probably going to be that way. But however we get that gone, and we get it down to just a spare space, we then looked at what would it cost to bring in, those manufactured buildings, 40 foot by 60 foot that you see getting plopped down at schools all around us here. Basically just a big empty shell, a couple of restrooms, and a kitchenette. What I mean by kitchenette, I don't mean oven and stove, I don't mean dishwasher. I do mean a refrigerator, a sink, then the refrigerator with a water line, so that, because all of our kids now come equipped with water bottles. I swear they're coming out of the womb that way now. They've got water bottles that they then can just put underneath that thing, get their water, and we don't have to keep buying bottled water to fill our current fridge with. So a water line like that, a sink, and a microwave on a counter, and a couple of storage cabinets to put probably disposable things that they'll eat off of, and whatever food they don't eat, we put back into one of those cupboards. That's it. Basically a mostly empty building. And in order to plop that down out there, now there's more to it than just that. You're aware of our dumpsters in the front out there. Those probably slide behind. We probably do a lot more concrete work, and the driveway specific to where the youth house sits now, that probably becomes a whole concrete place so that the dump trucks getting those things out of here don't have to be on our blacktop. Because a lot of our continued expenses around parking lot stuff are because of the trash trucks coming in and doing what they need to do. It's not their fault, but they're too heavy for blacktop. And that's part of why we have continuous repairs to that going on out there. So if we can shift that around. The number that you see up there behind me is an approximate number. And I'll tell you, one of the people who helped provide this quote was Steve Seals. And he looked at that and said, wow, for a manufacturer job, I'm wondering if I couldn't just build you something cheaper than that. So we still have more work to do to nail down exact costs and to get there. But that is a darn good throw a dart at a dartboard and come pretty close to what something's going to cost. Somewhere in that ballpark is where we're aiming as we do that. Now, one other thing that we talked about was the 10%. Here's where we get to have fun dreaming. I've got 5 names up there. Those are 5 sort of mission places where some of the 10% off the top can go. Now, if you've been doing the math in your head, you've seen the number for debt reduction, you've seen the number for new space, we're talking about a capital funds campaign of roughly 1.5 million. Take 10% off the top, that's $150,000. With that going, if you have 5 places, that is $30,000 a place. If you have 10, that's $15,000 each. If you have, well, just keep doing the math. I get confused, I'm a pastor, not a mathematician. I'm sure we have math teachers sitting out here. But you get the idea of the blessing that we can be to places. And at our last board meeting, we had 10 things that we were talking about. These 5 we agreed on all pretty quickly. There's more that we can do. And if any of you are aware of a ministry that you don't see up here that you're like, oh my gosh, Pastor, don't forget about this one. Talk to me, talk to one of your board members, anybody about that. Fill out one of those yellow cards on Sunday and toss it in the offering plate when it goes by. We'll get it. However you can communicate that, please do so. But again, imagine the difference that we can make in some of these places. You all heard Steve and Judy when they were here from Tanzania talking about this new clinic and health place they want to do. And unlike building costs here, there Dr. Steve is talking about $75,000 to build a building. What if we sent them 15? What if we sent them 30? With all the other partners, my goodness, we're going to have that thing built really, really quickly. Amazing stuff that we can do with this, and that's what we're about. Now, other future directions beyond this that we're talking about, and these are things for further down the road. We are probably going to do another 3rd English-speaking worship service. You'll remember the one that used to happen in this room at 11 o'clock? We may reverse something like that. It may not happen on Sunday morning. It might. It might be a weeknight. It might be Sunday at 11. We're not exactly sure. But right now, your staff, some of our musicians, other folks are looking at possibly the fall 1 year from now. So autumn of 25 is a time to start another 3rd English-speaking worship service. So coming up pretty quick here. Another thing that we've got to get to at some point, the restrooms off the sanctuary. You know, when you first come in the doors up the parking lot, you look right. I don't mean to insult in any way, shape, or form those who work hard to build the ones that are there. But with our understanding today of the way things need to be, we need to change those. Anybody trying to get into either of those restrooms, basically, even once they manage to push their way through the door, I'd like to have one of those door buttons outside they can push, and the door opens automatically for them. They immediately confront a wall. And those walls are not, they're not load bearing. They're things that can be moved. We can, and we've already designed plans to do it, reposition those bathrooms in a way that makes them fully ADA compliant and helps people who are already part of our congregation better use those restrooms. So that's something that we need to get done and get on. We also need to do some things in our sanctuary. I'm talking about keeping the basic place the way that it is, not huge changes, but just little movements here and there. I think most of you agree, especially if you're at the 9:30 service, you would agree that most music directors probably don't go to bed at night saying, please, dear Lord, may I serve a church where the entire music team runs in a single file line around a wall which I'm behind, down along, so that then the drum kit blocks the fire escape.
Oh.
At any moment, and I don't mean this as there's impending doom or something, but between our insurance company and our fire department, our piano in front of the one door and our drum set in front of the other, that's just not the best way to be. And right now, there's really not much other choice than that. That's why they're where they are. But it wouldn't take too terribly much. Can you picture up front where the 2 televisions are in the front there, the 2 screens up front? To just push those walls back, even just about 8 feet, we could then redo the front and have a much more sensible arrangement for Paul and for his musicians at either service, and then also have clear access to the 2 exit doors should, heaven forbid, we ever need to use them in a hurry. And that's something, again, that just needs to be in our brains and something that we need to get to and get done. And then I think most of you, especially those of you at the First Service who really care about and treasure the organ, you're aware that there are almost no working stops on it and everything else. I think to fully restore it as a fully blown up pipe organ is probably beyond our financial wisdom to even try to go down that road. But now we have technology that can keep the same console. It'll be the same foot pedals. Watch as I try to mimic you playing the thing here. And the same keyboards and everything else, but having it be digitized where it sounds just like a pipe organ. I mean, it even imitates the sound of the wind going through the pipes and everything else, but at much less cost. That's probably something that we want to do again in the future. And then you're also aware just all the basic things about sound system and everything else. We keep trying to tackle that, and we will keep trying to do that. Now, some of you may say, all of these things are great ideas, Pastor Sean, but what about some things that we know we need to do right now? And I'm going to walk you through 3 of those. And I think you're all aware that just outside this building, as you go towards the next building, this edge of it and then the far edge of it are flat roofs. Now, something I learned in the Midwest is you don't ever build a flat roof. People still do, but you don't do that. Because there, of course, snow, ice, and everything else builds up on them and then expands and contracts, increasing your roof leaks. Well, guess what? I learned that flat roofs leak here in California, too. And that's something that needs attention. And right now, on the front edge, if you look at where the library, the glass windows and doors are on the front edge of that building, and look up, you'll see all the rotted wood there. You'll see where things are basically nearing kind of almost collapse levels up there. And because the flat roof is leaking, we need to repair that. We need to get on that before it gets any worse and jeopardizes anything else. Our parking lot, most of the parking lot you can look at and go, this is not bad. We're doing okay. Until you get over in front of the dumpsters. And then you can almost see the wise turn that those trucks make to kind of come in our parking lot, back up to one edge, get their front end up, do the loading and unloading, and then do their back around and get back out again. And you can see all the spider webbing that's going on with all the broken up blacktop there. And then if you look really closely, this is kind of fascinating. You'll see that the blacktop actually makes like a wave right where it meets the dumpsters. And that's where the weight of the trucks actually pushes the blacktop up that way, and it then ramps up there. We need to dig in and get that out and then do a seal coat on the whole thing and do all of that. So that needs to be done. And then lastly, the sanctuary roof. Again, nothing negative to anybody who's come before, been part of it, but that roof really should have been vented way back when. We need to get in there, get vents in there, clean up some of the mess that not having vents has led to, and get that done. Those are 3 jobs that we need to do right now. And guess what? We can. Why? Because of a whole bunch of you sitting in this room, and because of some of those who have gone before. You heard me talk about the endowment fund and how we borrowed money from that in order to then get solar panels, which are now saving us a ton of money every single month on our utility bills. It's amazing, the savings. It's huge. But the way that endowment fund works is people like you, and some of you are included in this, have made donations to that fund over the years. Many have set it up so that at the end of their life, there's some sort of gift that is given into that endowment fund. The principal that is earned off of that the interest that is earned off of the principal in that endowment fund then becomes money that can be used for capital projects like this to do this. And because of people's generosity, this fund started all the way back in 2003. And it's been going this whole time. And again, I hope that you're aware of it, and if not, we'll have more opportunities to talk about it. But because of some of that built-up interest that is in there, these projects are getting done. And that is amazing. Now you get to what is the last slide. Everybody cheer for that. Yay! So what's the state of the church? The state of the church, let's use some words, and you can throw out some other ones. It is excellent. It is amazing. I'm thankful to be here. It is wonderful. Anybody want to throw out any other words? Awesome. Strong. Any others? Healthy. It's good. Remember in creation, God said, this is good. It's where we are. And it's because, in a large part, to some of you that have been here a long time, but to those who have gone before. The church that I'm now privileged to be here, 5 months at this point, is strong long before I got here. I'm inheriting this, and it is good. It is wonderful. It is excellent. And we have an amazing future before us. God is calling us to do wonderful things. And I'm really excited, especially after seeing so many kids at the 9:30 service today. I am excited about the possibilities of our children's ministry, our continued excellence in youth ministry. He's not here, and I realize he may watch this thing later, or some of you may tell him. But Noel is really good. It is a gift to work on staff alongside of him. And I'm just imagining, what if we actually give him a place where it's okay to deeply breathe? And where there's actually space where the kids can still gather and see each other. Imagine once we do that. And then I step back and imagine this place out of debt. I am constantly amazed as I think about what are all the people of this congregation going to do and accomplish in God's name together. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask, are there any questions? You can ask out loud here, you can come up to me later. You can also go after any of your board people that may happen to be here. If any of you wish to ask a question here, I think I see Jack waving a microphone around. He or Paul or somebody is going to run you one if you put your arm up in the air. But it's not something you have to do. We've got one up here in the front just so you have to run the absolute furthest you possibly can. Yeah.
Such was my lot in life.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about that, all the things you considered about the youth house.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any wisdom in possibly just trying to add on to this structure that way?
The question is, can we just add on to this structure existing? The short answer is I didn't look specifically into that. The longer answer is, right now, with where the columbarium is, and then just trying to go that direction, we have existing playground space out there. We have an amazing playground. Other preschool folks who come and look at our facility are like, ooh, I love your playground. You have so much space, it's awesome. So I didn't think about that. The other thing where I've just gotten gun shy, the moment you start trying to redo a building, and this is counterintuitive for me, but it seems like when you try to add on or redo a building, you pick up more costs than if you just build separately. I'm hearing some yups to that. I'm surprised by that. I really thought if they already put a deck on, let's just go up. And, it took me a while to recover from what they then brought to me as, this is what that's going to cost. So that's where we end up there. Yes. We'll get you a mic. Jack's coming. Back to Louise back there.
I feel like Oprah.
Will clip arts continue?
Will clip arts continue? The short answer to that is yes. The idea is our director of children's ministry, part of what we hope is that they have some degree of leadership over the clip arts program. The Clip Arts program also needs to shift, and their board is hard at work looking at this and so forth. But when we started Clip Arts, two things were very true. Number one, it was born out of the incredible gifts that Lim and Havilah had and what they did. And it was sort of just kind of them doing it. The second piece was there were not after-school programs doing that sort of things for the kids right here in our neighborhood. Those were not available. Two things have changed. Lim and Havilah have moved, and they're doing wonderfully well, by the way. It's kind of cool. Even though I've never met them in person, especially with Havilah. I'm friends with her on Facebook. We send each other messages all the time. She's pretty neat. I like her. But the other thing is that the schools are now doing exactly that. They're offering theater programs for kids after school right over here next to us. And so the need that we were filling shifted. And so how Clip Arts is structured, defined, and everything else may be shifting also in the face of that, just naturally morphing. But the hope is that the new director of children's ministry person would carry on with some of that Clip Arts. And then I think some of you know this, Paul was really huge in the last Clip Arts thing that happened. We're looking at continuing that. And then also our directors of the last Clip Arts are sitting right over there too. So again, thank you to everybody that's been a part of that. You got one in the back.
My impression is that attendance at both services is strong, even as we're heading into the summer. Just want to verify that my impression is correct, and also curious what our video viewership is right now.
Yes, good questions about attendance. And thank you for this, but somebody said to me this morning, well, I guess we're going to have a low attend Sunday just because, it's now officially summer. It's really summer. And I haven't seen a number count yet, but I think it was pretty darn healthy today, so thank you for that. And then, but Bernie's question gets to, what are numbers like and where are we that way? So that you know, and again, no blame, no shame, no nothing. This congregation did amazing work just being who we are now today and where we've gotten. But COVID was hard on a lot of churches, and not just this one, but a whole bunch of churches all across the country. And I was working with it in Michigan at the time. But if you were to go back 10 years ago and say, what was our number in 2014, and then go back to the beginning of this year and say, where are we today? It would be down 40%. That's the number where we are. This year, there's been a kick up, and this, again, I don't think it has much to do with me. I think it's just new direction, people going and getting together and doing all those kinds of things. But we are up 15%, going back the other direction. And that's without a single bit, and I'm going to use a dirty word here, of advertising. A time is coming, and I've been warning the board about this, where I'm going to tell them, we've got to get the word out that this church is here, what it's doing, and the message of hope that it's got for everybody. Because I think this church can continue to grow when we get that word out. And right now, other than your direct invitation, and my goodness, I had somebody today saying, I was talking to a friend about coming. I've had other people have friends come with them that they have invited. You're doing great at that. Keep doing that. That's wonderful. That's awesome. That's amazing. But in general, we also have to get the word out that way. Viewership online is large. Now, one of the things we can't tell is how long somebody stays connected. So our YouTube thing tells us, for instance, on any given week, Jack, is the number 165 is in my head. Is that reasonable for how many hits we get every single week? 165. Now, what I cannot tell you, did every person of those 165 watch every single minute of that entire live stream? Or did they tune in for a very brief period? Did they get to the point of the sermon and say, not listening to him? What happened? Were there parts that were fast forwarded through? I can't tell you the nature of those 165 views. All I can tell you is that there were 165 views. Now, I will tell you this anecdotally. I've been able to go around and meet all kinds of people who tell me I only ever watch at home. And my goodness, they can quote sermons to me and everything else. Even somebody who's not a member of this church, the guy who lives across the street, I ran into him at the gym after having met him once, and he told me what my sermon was about the Sunday before. To him. And then there's my sister who watches in Michigan and tells me, yeah. Any others? Dwight, it looks like, in the middle.
Yeah, just, can you talk about, when this building was built, there was a youth room upstairs, a
Mhm.
youth facility, so what's that being used for right now, and how is that, I know it's been repurposed and things, but we did use that at one time as a main youth facility, so
Yep.
where are we at right now with that?
Where are we at right now and where are we intending to be as we move forward? I think most of you are aware that if you cut through the kitchen, there's immediately stairs that go up there, or there are stairs in the front of the building that go up, but you can get to upstairs and there's about half a dozen rooms up there. One of them is a really cool theater room that I keep telling Paul, he and I are gonna hang out in there one day, it's gonna be a long day, and watch the entire Lord of the Rings movie. So you may want to join us for that. And we're talking the extended versions. But there's a little movie room up there that honestly I haven't seen used since I've been here. I'm unaware of any use for it at this point. There may be some of which I'm unaware of. There's a lot of things happen here that I'm unaware of. But then there's a series of other rooms up there. One of them used to be called the Club 56 room. Some of you remember that language. It's for 5th and 6th graders. And then there are other ones that are assigned to different age groups and so forth. Right now, they have the following uses: Sunday school and mainly 12-step groups. A whole bunch of 12-step groups actually make use of our building. I'm, again, stunned at the numbers. It's a lot. Who come here, and for some of the smaller ones, and again, helping out with the anonymity, it's kind of nice just to be able to come in the side door there, go upstairs, and there's your private room right up there to meet. And so they're getting a lot of use that way. Once we start Rename Church Night, those rooms will have use because a lot of those modules that we talked about are going to have to take place in those rooms. And that's where some of that's going on. Why don't I consider that for youth, sort of Knowles youth group space? The reason is this, is that we're dedicated. Obviously, you can do youth ministry under just about any kind of conditions. But the best conditions are when youth of that age have a space that is genuinely their own, where they can decorate it the way they want to, they can have their materials there, they can have all those kinds of things. It helps build a camaraderie and just a sense of cohesion and everything else that we're striving to do that way, and they have their space. On the flip side of that, also then, you don't have to go try and use a space that they were recently in. I didn't say that out loud. But that's why, like, this is a great room, and they can do all kinds of things in here, but you don't want them making this their dedicated space. You know, our Faithful Fitness group probably would enjoy meeting in a youth group space. You know, and other groups like that. This room gets tons of use that way. So having dedicated space. Those rooms up there are not today as fully utilized as I would want them to be, but I think with our Wednesday thing starting, they're going to get a lot more. And then, again, we're still in that spot of trying to find dedicated youth space for others. And that's why knock down and rebuild. Yes, Jillian. Of course, Jack, you went all the way over to the side.
I know when Bill McCall was here as the administrator, he set up for us to have our own password to do the online directory. Is anyone monitoring that now? There are so many names that don't have photographs. A lot of the information is not updated, and I know it's the individual's responsibility to do that, because given with your password, you can go and edit your own profile. I did that when my husband died. I put deceased next to his picture. So is there someone that can take on that role and spearhead that? So because as you said, 8 o'clock don't know 9:30, 9:30 don't know 8 o'clock. And you can hear me, oh gee, I don't know that. I've had Terry tell me that in quilting. So can somebody take that on? I know it's probably a low priority, but I think it's important to know each other as church members.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Jillian, you,
Oh, funny.
Jillian, the job is yours.
Yeah, Jillian, you're hired. She's asking about the online directory and access to that and everything else. I want to say one thing and make sure this is heard very, very clearly. No one has dropped the ball on that. And I'm even going to name Patty very clearly here. She works her tail off and is very, very busy doing all kinds of amazing and good and wonderful things here. So this is not something where somebody has just sort of dropped the ball. Bill, and again, I got to meet Bill too. He came here, I don't know if you're aware of this, but he's still on the board of directors for the Visalia Senior Housing thing. And they now, or maybe they always have, I don't know, host their board meetings here in our boardroom. So I've gotten to meet Bill, so that's been neat, even though he now lives over by the coast. He got this thing set up, and it's a good and positive thing, but you're right, Jillian, it needs constant monitoring and updating and uploading pictures and changing new addresses and doing all that kind of stuff, and we haven't had that.
But it's
Remember,
our responsibility as the individual on the website.
yeah,
I don't think
every
we do that.
individual, in an ideal world, that would actually work.
Yeah.
You did it, and thank you. But then let's go to me. Have I been on there and updated any of my info and done any of that? I haven't. So part of that new support staff person that you saw there, it's things like that. There are things that are right now, we can say, wow, that's a great idea. Who's got time for that? And it's just not there. So that's part of what this person's about, is helping with all kinds of things like that.
Well, like you said, Patty's in charge of so many things, bless her heart. And if I question an address that I think is not right, I'll call her.
Yep.
See if she has something. And
Patty's
she does.
Rolodex is the boss
Yes,
of all.
Yeah, you don't get rid of the Rolodex. I don't
Yeah.
care what you are.
Yes, Jack?
So what is the status of Christ Kids preschool?
What is the status of Christ Kids Preschool? Again, we've had a shifting world in which we live. When Christ Kids was formed, I think all of you know that preschool was not available in the public school system and where things went there. And we were offering something incredibly valuable for people to participate and move forward. One thing that has not changed in the slightest is that Christ Kids is still an amazing school. This is its 25th year that is coming up. And you have a staff that's dedicated to making this 25th year the best year of those 25 years. One of the things that have shifted, and again, I want to say this is a good thing. There was a federal mandate that then went out to the states, and the states had to implement it whatever way they did. And it said that preschool should be available to every single child regardless of ability to pay for it. And free preschool for all is a good thing. It is a positive thing. I am delighted that that has happened. But it has had a direct effect on our existing preschool with where we are now. What that has meant for us is that we used to have people, how many of you remember this? I've just been told these stories. The people used to line up outside on the day, I remember trying to get Journey tickets back in the early 1980s, line up outside the stadium to go get tickets. But that's what this sounds like, is people lining up out there to make sure that their kids got in. And we're able to do that, and we had a waiting list that we had to work off of. With free preschool available for every single kid wherever we are down to a point where enrollment is down. And the financial reality is, today, is that the preschool struggles to a bit. Now, I also want to be clear, the church, per se, is not losing money on the preschool. Because during COVID, the government made it possible for us to apply for all kinds of grants that kept us going in that sense. And we have a pile of money from those grants that any shortfalls we're experiencing are being met by that. What we are doing now, you have an amazing board that is hard at work at this. We have been very clear with Denise and her staff. You guys don't have to spend all your time trying to figure out what's next while you're doing all the work making the 25th year the best year ever. So we've relieved them of that responsibility. The board is hard at work looking at what happens if we go younger. Because we've been doing that last step right before you go into kindergarten. What happens if we actually go younger, which can include some kids who are toddlers and still in diapers. But what happens if we go younger? Now, your board is just a few meetings into that, but the initial indications are incredibly positive. That there's an incredible need out there for childcare at those age levels, and that we can help meet that need. And your board has been meeting with people from Tulare County who are talking about all kinds of grants that become available for us if we're doing that, and all sorts of other things. I was also deeply concerned that we would have to do a major revision of the existing room in order to go younger, around room sizes and other things. The most recent meeting with a full tour of this place concluded that no, the revisions that are needed are actually affordable and possible, and things that we can take on. And so that was tremendous news. So you ask what's the status, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. We're going to have our 25th and best year this year, doing what we've been doing for these 25 years, and it's going to be awesome. And then, in a way that's almost potentially a blink and you'll miss it, over next summer, we're going to have a slight refocus on the age groups that we're working with and what our exact mission is. And the next fall, we'll be open for a regular school year and doing our thing, and you almost, like I said, might not notice a difference. It's just the kids are going to be a little bit younger. That's my best guess sitting here before you today. You got one over here. Again, well done, about the furthest point. Get Jackie's exercise.
Automatically goes up, I can't do anything about
We,
it.
There you go.
we have,
See, normally he's just sitting in the booth in the back. This is good.
I just want to say thank you and kind of go over some of the things that you were talking about. I don't know if you ever knew we used to do a Hands Across Visalia.
Oh my gosh, I've read about Terry. Where's Terry? The book and what
Yes.
he wrote in there about that.
Yeah,
The Hands
Terry.
Across Visalia, Cans Across Visalia. I'm envious that I wasn't part of that.
Yeah,
That
we-
is amazing ministry.
Yeah,
Well
this-
done.
This is an amazing church. I mean, we just put our faith out there and we just welcome everybody. And we are thankful that you're here because I can see how we're going to keep going forward. And as much as Christ Lutheran is loved in this community, with you at the head of it, we're going to be loved even more. And I just want to thank you.
How often will I do these meetings? If I hold you much longer, my guess is never again, and you'll make sure of that. I'm not exactly sure. This is one of those things I saw Brian always did. It looked like an annual Stay of the Church that he it looked like it was a printed thing that went out. Was it also in this form? No. There's a printed thing that went out. And so, like again, I'm terrible at naming things, so I stole the name from Brian and then made it a form like this. I don't know how often I'll do this. This is my first, and like I said, if we go much longer, probably my last. One last question over here, apparently. Jack, run.
I was just about to ask anybody from the far side of the room had a question.
I could have shouted it, but when are you thinking of starting the Wednesday night? Whatever you're going to call it.
When are we going to call renamed church night? When will it start? I'm going to give you an absolute earliest. I'm going to give you my best guess. And both of those could be amazingly wrong. Here's the biggest wild card. We've got to find people for those student staff positions before we can pull this off. We do. That has to happen first. And we've got to get rolling on that. So your board, like I said, they are hard at work. They are, pray for them because I think I'm pushing them in ways that, stretch them a bit. They are working hard on those job descriptions, getting those out. Then we got to get them out there. We have to have people interview. We have to have the right candidate, and all the things that fall into place. Then we got to get them up to speed, get them running, and so forth. It is possible that one or both of those candidates are sitting in this room right now. It is possible that those are people we've never even heard of. Maybe they don't even live in California at this very minute. That happens. But we got to get them in place. The absolute earliest date is August 21st. Why do I say that? Because August 18th is Rally Day. Now, Rally Day could move, but right now it's on the schedule for August 18. That's a Sunday. August 21 after it. It's just going kind of along the line with the school year. My best guess is, again, just kind of throwing a dart at a board, somewhere in the autumn, maybe October. I don't know exactly, but somewhere in that ballpark is, because I think it may take a little longer to get somebody on the staff up to speed and going and so forth before we start. I really hope it's going by then. Like I said, either of those guesstimates could be just something we look back on and laugh about what Pastor Sean said. Yes, Georgia.
Lynn and I will do a potato night.
That's my only job.
Lynn and I will do a potato night.
A potato night. Woohoo! Potato bar. I'm into that. Sweet. And we're going to have all kinds of opportunities for people to sign up, because that's the other thing. Once we announce the date, then we got to get the cooks in place. Then we got to get all the children's volunteers to do the various modules in places. Then we got to get the adult stuff going. Then we got to get, this is not small, but it's going to be awesome. And with that, let's let you go. If there's other questions, you got board people, jump on them. Maybe not literally, but they're around, and then I'm here too. Thank you, everyone. And thank you those of you watching online.
I had 18 plus meetings.